This is a Melodies Ambience podcast. Hello, my name is Melody, and I'd like to welcome you to Melodies Ambience Sleep. This podcast is designed to help you unwind, relax, and drift off to a peaceful sleep. Each episode typically features 25 minutes of calming ambient sounds and soothing music, paired with a new story or poem read by me in my soothing voice. However, for this special episode, I have something a little different in store for you. I'd like to share with you my thoughts as I reflect on the service and sacrifice made by so many in defense of their freedom, their families, and their lives. Since this episode will be a bit different, then let's begin. Stone and silence. The air hung thick and damp, a soft gray blanket muffling the morning sounds. It was Remembrance Sunday, and the world outside my bubble felt subdued, hushed into a reverent quiet. I hadn't slept well, the kind of broken, restless night that leaves you feeling more weary than when you started, but a gentle pull had got me out of bed. It was a duty of a personal sort, and one I felt compelled to follow through on. The sky, an indistinguishable mass of pewter and pearl, offered no contrast to the sleepy village as I made my way toward the old church. The roads were virtually empty, the only movement a few stray, rust-colored leaves skittering across the pavement, propelled by a lazy, sporadic breeze. The silence wasn't oppressive, it was soothing, a balm to the soul in need of peace. I wore a simple, dark coat, its collar pulled high against the chill that seemed to seep up from the very ground. In my lapel, a poppy, slightly crumpled from handling, was pinned with quiet pride. It wasn't about the grand parade or the formal service for me today. It was about the small, solitary act of remembering. I pushed open the wrought iron gate to the churchyard. Its familiar, low-groan, a welcome interruption to the perfect stillness. The smell of wet earth and ancient stone immediately enveloped me, a heavy, organic perfume that always felt like a doorway to the past. The church itself, with its sturdy, squat tower, seemed to be holding its own silent vigil. Its stones, blackened by centuries of weather, stood firm. I didn't go inside. My destination was the graveyard, the crowded, uneven field where generations had been laid to rest. I began my walk slowly, deliberately, weaving between the low, moss-covered gravestones. Some were grand and imposing, others just simple slabs of grey rock, barely legible after years of rain and wind. Each was a placeholder for a life lived. focus narrowed as I searched for the plots with the distinctive, familiar etchings, those that marked the men who had answered the call. Their stones were often newer, whiter, sometimes with a more uniform, government-issued design, standing out amongst the Victorian angels and intricate Celtic crosses. I paused at a stone, its inscription clean and sharp. A name, a regiment, a date, fallen in battle. Just 3 facts that spoke of an entire, untold saga of mud, fear, and ultimate sacrifice. I didn't know him, but standing there, I felt a connection, a profound, aching sense of gratitude. The gentle wind sighed through the mature yew trees, their dark boughs heavy and sheltering. The sound was like a faint whisper, carrying the echoes of stories never fully told, of futures truncated, of young lives put on hold, and then irrevocably ended. I knelt briefly, not in prayer, but in acknowledgement. My hand brushed the cold, rough stone, a physical connection across the chasm of time. What must that have been like, I wondered, to face such a thing? The sheer, incomprehensible courage it must have taken. It wasn't just the famous battles. I noticed stones marking those who had died much later, from wounds or sicknesses carried home, the slow casualties of war that didn't make the headlines. The sacrifice wasn't always a sudden, explosive event. Sometimes it was a lingering, quiet fade. I straightened up and continued my slow promenade. The contemplation was not sorrowful in an immediate, acute way, but rather a deep, respectful melancholy. It was a recognition that my very peaceful walk was paid for by their great turmoil. The sheer number of names began to impress itself upon me. So many young men from this little village who had never come back to walk these familiar paths again. It felt immense, the total cost of freedom recorded silently in this small, sacred space. I thought of their mothers, their wives, and their sweethearts, who must have come here in their own day, perhaps on a Sunday just like this, carrying the same weight of memory and loss. The churchyard felt less like a cemetery and more like a collective memory store. My gaze drifted toward the rolling hills beyond the low stone wall. Everything seemed so permanent, so unchanging. The gray sky, the green fields, the solid tower. Yet, everything was built upon the transient lives of these thousands who lay beneath my feet. I walked over a patch of grass that felt particularly soft and springy underfoot, imagining the boys who had played on this same spot before heading off to a war they couldn't possibly have fully understood. Their innocence lost to the drumbeat of history. There was a strange comfort in the solemnity. The silence, the still air, the cold stone, it all worked together to ground me, to pull me out of the frantic pace of modern life and into a timeless moment of genuine reflection. It was restorative. I breathed deeply, inhaling the cool, moist air. The quiet of the churchyard seemed to soak into my bones, a calming influence. The act of coming here, alone, away from the formal proceedings, felt like the most honest way to honor them. I circled back towards the gate, leaving the soldiers' rows behind me. I had come seeking to remember them, and in a way, I felt that I had. Not just the names, but the spirit of unwavering duty and selflessness they embodied. As I pushed the heavy gate shut behind me, the sound echoing softly in the now slightly lighter air, I clutched my coat tighter. The world outside felt a touch more precious, a bit more fragile, and wholly more significant than it had when I arrived. I carried their peace back out into my own life. Dear listener, I hope that the quiet walk we just shared brought you a measure of calm. That gentle reflection among the whispers of stone and silence isn't meant to hold us captive in sadness, but rather to remind us how fiercely precious the present moment is. If those heroes of the past could speak, I truly believe they wouldn't ask us for tears, but for us to cherish the peace they fought so hard to secure. The true legacy of their service isn't just a poppy pin to a coat. It's the beautiful, ordinary day you have right now. It's the simple act of walking forward, seeing the green fields, and hearing the wind sigh, knowing that those quiet freedoms were paid for at such an immense cost. So take a deep breath. Let the stillness of that old churchyard settle in your heart, not as a weight, but as a foundation. Be kind to yourself today, and use the strength of their courage to face whatever comes your way. Every moment of joy, every simple pleasure, is a victory they bought for us. We honor them best by living our lives fully, beautifully, and with deep gratitude. Carry that feeling of quiet strength with you, and remember that even in the grayest of mornings, the light always returns. With all my love, Melody. Thank you so much for listening. In the next episode, we will return to the usual ambience of calm and peace.